concern about Section 215 of the Patriot Act, Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance, the FISA. We've had a number of common sense proposals in the Judiciary Committee to improve these provisions, but the intelligence community has told us that really we obviously don't have the ability as simple senators to know anything as well as you do, and so they do not need changes. Been told they're critical to our counterterrorism efforts. Congress shouldn't tinker with them at all. We should simply trust you to use them the right way, and they shouldn't be made permanent. I don't think that's wise. I think that there should be sunset provisions, and we should look at them periodically, and we should actually debate them in a free and open society. Now, we have information recently declassified by the Director of National Intelligence, and I'm not going into questions of whether he completely contradicted himself in a couple of answers, but taking what he's recently declassified, it appears that Section 702 collection said it was critical to disrupting the Zazi case in New York City. But it's not clear the data collected pursuant to Section 215 of the Patriot Act was similarly critical or crucial. So, General Alexander, let me ask you, aside from these two cases, has the intelligence community kept track of how many times phone records obtained through Section 215 of the Patriot Act were critical to the discovery and disruption of terrorist threats?
I don't have those figures today.
Are those figures available?
We are going to make those figures available.
How soon?
We promised, over the next week, it would be our intent to get those figures out. I've talked to the Intel Committee on that yesterday. I think it's important to note
wait a minute. You talked to the Intel community about this yesterday, but you didn't have the figures yesterday.
I gave an approximate number to them in a classified, but it's dozens of terrorist events that these have helped prevent.
Okay, so dozens. Now, we collect millions and millions and millions of records through 215, but dozens of them have proved crucial, or critical in your words. Is that right? Dozens?
For both here and abroad in disrupting or contributing to the disruption of terrorist attacks.
Out of those millions, dozens have been critical.
That's correct.
Would you give me the specific, even if it has to be classified, the specific cases you're talking about?
We will, but we're going through the Intel Committee to do this. Tomorrow, I'll give as clear as we have vetted precisely what we've done on each of those. And the reason that I want to get this exactly right, Senator, is I want the American people to know that we're being transparent in here.
Well, no, you're not giving it to the American people. You're giving it a classified to specific members of Congress. Is that correct?
Well, there's two parts. We can give the classified. That's easy. But I think also for this debate, what you were asking, and perhaps I misunderstood this, but I thought you were also asking what we could put out unclassified. And so the intent would be to do both.
Okay.
As you said that, I agree.
You can do that within a week?
That is our intent. I am pushing for that, and perhaps faster. And if I don't get any kicks from behind me.
If you don't get any what?
Kicks from the people behind me who are doing the work, because we do want to get this right. And it has to be vetted across the community so that what we give you, you know, is accurate, and we have everybody here, especially between the FBI and the rest of the Intel community, can say this is exactly correct.
Okay, now, DNI Clapper said that Section 702 collection was critical to the discovery and disruption of the plot to bomb the New York City subway system, Zazi case. Is that correct?
That is correct. In fact, not just critical, it was the one that developed the lead on it.
Thank you.
So I would say it was the one that allowed us to know it was happening.
But that is different than Section 215.
That is different than Section 215.
215 phone records, 702.
So if I could explain this.
Sure, go ahead.
Because I do think it's important that we get this right. And I want the American people to know that we're trying to be transparent here, protect civil liberties and privacy, but also the security of this country. On the New York City one, the Zazi case, it started with a 702 set of information based on operatives overseas. We saw connections into a person in Colorado. That was passed to the FBI. The FBI determined who that was, Zazi, and phone numbers that went to that. The phone numbers on Zazi were the things that then allowed us to use the business records, FISA, to go and find out connections from Zazi to other players throughout the community, specifically in New York City. So that's how those two work
215
together.
critical.
I think 215 is critical in corroborating and in helping us understand.
Was it critical in Zazi?
Not to Zazi, because the first part to Zazi went to the 702.
And Headley? Was either 702 or 215 critical?
702 on Headley, and some on the business record FISA for corroborating.
Okay, thank you.
And I think it's important to understand, because this is a issue that I think will be part of the debate. And I would put on there, Senator, also the Boston. I think we need to walk through that so that what we have on the business record FISA, what we have on 702, what you debate, the facts that we can give you is what we do with that, how we tip that to the FBI. If we took that away, what we could not do, and is that something that when we look at this from a security perspective?
Of course,
is
in
good?
Boston, if you're talking about the Marathon case, what the FBI could have done was to have passed on the information to the Boston authorities. They said they did not. That might have been helpful too. But my time is up, and I mention this only because before it's brought up in the Judiciary Committee, we're going to be asking some very, very specific.
So if I could, Senator, I just want to make sure that we're clear on one point. When I say dozens, what I'm talking about here is that these authorities complement each other in helping us identify different terrorist actions and help disrupt them. They complement each other. So what you're asking me is to state unequivocally that A or B contributed solely to that. The reality is they work together, and we've got to help make that clear to you, so in the debate we have that.
And I'll be waiting to see those specific examples, either in open or classified fashion.